All right. So how do you manage security overall for the organization? Different strategies. You need to have an overall program, as we've been talking about. It should be a result of your governance. It should be dictated by your policy. You need to have a security program for the organization. Again, you need senior management buy-in. It's got to have strategic alignment. Your policies dictate what those things are. You have those standards, the procedures, the guidelines. All of those things that we've already discussed as part of your governance. Again, long-term versus short-term. In security, some of the long-term things are going to be the governance, going to be your appetite for risk, going to be how often you do audits, how often you do reviews, what is your accreditation, how long is your accreditation good for. Short-term, you're going to continually be looking at emerging threats. You're going to be looking at possible theft. You're going to be looking at new programs coming online for your organization. What is reasonable cost when it comes to security? 5%? 10%?
It's a lot easier to determine when you've done a qualitative or quantitative risk assessment.
Good. That's really good, because now you have a number you can hook it to, right? Good. Good, good, good. Reasonable cost is like acceptable risk, right? Everybody's got their own appetite for it, and it will be dictated by the organization and by senior management. Good. This is what we want to get our message across, too. We want the business, we want the management to be aware that the business could not take place. There could be no business without the strategic alignment of security. Is that true, or are we just campaigning for ourselves? If the formula for Coke was known, would Coke still be in business? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is the formula itself the thing that they're selling? No. What are they selling, man?
Their brand.
They're selling their brand. You feel good about that red and white can. You feel like you did when you were a kid at the ball game, right? They're selling America, is what they're selling. Yay, Coke. Good for Coke. If their brand was damaged, would they still be in business?
Depends on how much damage they've got. Yeah.
Who bought a Perrier this week? Who remembers what Perrier was?
Water.
What's that?
Water company.
The water company. They were really huge. They were bigger than Aquafina and Smart Water and Vitamin Water all put together. Why aren't they around anymore?
I didn't know they weren't.
They are.
Yeah.
They have this much market share. I mean, but why don't you see them? If you go and look at any movie from the 1980s, those little green glass bottles are ubiquitous. Why aren't they around anymore? What happened? They slit the throat of their brand. They had some benzene in their water, and they lied about it, and they denied it, and they got caught several times, and people stopped trusting them. Instead of looking at a red and white can going, that's America, they looked at a green glass bottle and said, you're poisoning me. Is security an element of branding? Yes, to some extent it is. Because that goodwill, that faith, when we were talking about losing your vendors' data, losing your customers' data, making them feel bad about your company, making them distrust you, yes, that's a vital element of what you do. That's a vital element of protecting the data. Gabriel, I think I used this example already, so I'm not going to let you answer this one. What happened with Tylenol in the 1980s?
It had a similar kind of incident, only they were tampered with, basically. It wasn't their fault necessarily. But.
Excellent. Absolutely. They were literally... With the benzene thing, in terms of Perrier, it just exceeded levels of contamination. Nobody really got sick. Nobody got hurt by it. With Tylenol, people died. There was cyanide put into Tylenol capsules that killed people. Who's had Tylenol in the past month? Me too. Why are they still around? Why are they still around? If Perrier didn't even make anybody sick, why are they still around? And Tylenol, who killed people, is.
Did their tamper-proof stuff?
Safety packaging.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. What else did they do?
They're also really aggressive about recalling all the medicine, even if they thought it wasn't tainted.
Yeah.
Thank you. They didn't lie.
Under the chair.
Which is why you can't get it right.
Chair candy. Okay. They didn't lie. Not only didn't they lie, they went on television. The CEO of Johnson & Johnson went on television and said, "We're sorry. We accept full responsibility for this. Don't take any Tylenol till you feel comfortable taking Tylenol again." That's the best example of brand management I can think of. They stepped out ahead of it. They pulled everything off the shelf. They offered people money for their almost empty bottles of Tylenol without receipts. And they spent a lot of money, and they lost a lot of money. And then their market share came back. They put the tamper-proof stuff on it. They sealed the top. They were the market leaders in that. And we all eat Tylenol now, right? That's impressive. That's part of security as well. Did they probably also beef up security in their distribution process? Yeah, I can imagine they did. I can imagine they beefed up security at their plants as well. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Cost budgeting in terms of security. Why do you need to do this? Again, because if you're spending money in places that's not really securing you, you're not securing the organization. You're wasting money, and you're making the company or the organization less secure. You're actually caught. You become a sinkhole, a money pit, and that doesn't help. You want to make sure that you've got some metrics, that you have some way of measuring whether or not your controls are doing what they say. That's sometimes difficult to do because, again, you're measuring in negatives. If you have a guard with a gun at the front door of the building and you say, "We didn't get robbed this year," do you know that it was the guard that kept the robbers away? No, you can't measure in negative. That's sometimes difficult to do. What you can do is compare yourself to your competitors, other industries in the field. What you can do is sometimes see the levels of attacks, the levels of detects, as we talked about, on failed attacks. That can be used sometimes. And you should be able to try to get to a result. Should you get to 0 intrusions? Should you get to 0 threats? Should you get to 0 risk? No. That's both ridiculous and not cost effective. But you should try to be able to get to that result in a cost effective way based on the controls you've picked and the systems you have in place. We prioritize because you can't do everything. Unless you work in some really, really, really isolated places, you can't do everything you want to do in terms of security. So you have to pick those things that you want to do. Senior management, not every organization has steering committees, but senior management is going to help dictate what those priorities are. They need to do that based on information that you're giving them. Again, you are the resident expert. You are the consultant to management when it comes when it comes to security. You're going to help them determine what those priorities are. And if necessary, you're going to help them make those tough choices based on those priorities. This puts security in the bad position of becoming the scapegoat sometimes, but that's okay. We should be willing to take that political hit in order to actually secure the organization. And if something unexpected crops up, maybe you can bring in resources from the outside. Is Sony a pretty good, pretty knowledgeable company when it comes to IT? Yeah, it's kind of their business, isn't it? I mean, a lot of it. When they got hacked, did they just turn it over to their internal team? Did they just respond to it themselves? They hired a world premier, a world-class entity to take over the response for them. Why would you do that? Even if you had people internally who could do it, why would you hand it over to somebody else? Don't you have internal people for the express reason of responding to incidents?
It's kind of an external validation thing, so that people will, you're not going to say, oh, well, they're just covering it up, they're doing this internally, so you get an external person to...
I like that. I like that. Yeah, it buys you a bit more credence, doesn't it? It makes you look, especially to your external stakeholders, your shareholders, the public, your consumers, right? It makes you look as if you're not trying to just keep it in-house. Good. Other things that it affords you, expertise that might be outside your team's realm. Maybe they weren't familiar with this particular thing, which is why it happened. Maybe some of the other things that it can do is continue to let your team handle day-to-day security operations. Just because there was an incident doesn't mean all the things that they normally have to do go on hold. It means those things are continuing in addition to this incident. So maybe you need to bring more people in to augment that effort, right? And sometimes it can show your insurers, it can show the court, it can show the regulators that you took that due care. You performed your due diligence by bringing in, you spent this amount of money on this breach, which is why you're not liable. That's a useful thing. All those things are good tools for bringing in other people. How do you measure your security architecture? How do you measure that effectiveness? Quantitative, if you can. What other things can you measure? You can measure it according to the resources themselves. How many times was that machine itself? How many times was that data accessed? How many times was it accessed by unauthorized entities? How many times did we have to, what was the downtime on those machines? We can measure each of the CIA triad again on those. We can measure it by geographics. We can say our headquarters was only down this amount of time over a year. There's different ways of looking at it and reporting on it. Other good metrics. Average time to detect. That one's kind of tricky. Why is that one maybe not such a great metric? What are you measuring? You're measuring all the ones you've detected. You're not measuring all those you haven't detected. So it might give you a false sense of security.
Even when you detect, you don't know when it began.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can follow it back, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't know how long it's been there. Good. He gets a Twix, man. See that?
Back off.
Yeah. Good. Average time to pass it up the food chain, contain it. We're going to talk about that in incident response as well. Average time between vulnerability detection and resolution. This is a good metric from a security standpoint, not so good from a political standpoint. Why not? Who are you making look bad with that one?
IT department.
IT department. Yeah. And you already tried to co-opt everybody, including IT, into being good little security contributors, and now you're kind of slapping with it. There's got to be trade-offs there too as well. Be sensitive to those things. Is this a good metric? Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. And you should have a process in place for doing that as well. And as long as you can report, we've been in accordance with our process, that's a good thing. That's a good metric to use. After the fact, you're going to look at all of your incidents. Again, these, while they are quantitative measures, they might not actually reflect anything that's going to be necessarily of use, but they are things that you can measure. You can measure audits. Is that useful? Sure. Again, you should have a policy in place saying how often things are going to be audited and whether or not you're in compliance with them. This one, if that number is greater than 0, don't you have a problem already? It means that you knowingly put forth a change that didn't go through the process, right? And didn't go through your exception process. So it's something you can measure. I'm just not sure exactly the efficacy of using that measure. Good. Other things you can measure qualitatively instead of quantitatively. Is everything properly configured and monitored? When we talk about monitoring these things and the configuration, are we talking about somebody sitting there and watching them, like via closed-circuit television? No, of course, that's automated processes. There's software that can monitor the baseline and alarm when something deviates. Self-protection. Are you implementing all of the controls that you said you were going to? You can check and see who's been alerted at any given time. Do you have a process in your organization for when these things are detected, are those people informed? Is there a pager? Nobody uses pager anymore. Is there a mobile device that is informed? Are there people on standby? Is there 24-hour coverage for that? And whether or not critical systems have some sort of instant notification, and whether or not you, as the security office, have been informed of those things. All right. In terms of management, going over these things, you should be monitoring those things that senior management wants to know. How does senior management decide what it is they want to know?
You tell them.
You tell them. You help them out. You walk them through that process. You inform them as to what it is they want to be informed on. You should also be helping out the business owners. Why? Strategic alignment. Yes, security has to dovetail with the business, right? Plus, if you're doing what the business process owners want, you're making them a part of the security program as well. You have made them your buddies instead of your antagonists. Important things for operational capabilities and, of course, your own management requirements. You're going to give them reports on a regular basis of how you're doing and what you intend to be doing. You might want to get some good numbers, some hard numbers, to put on that management dashboard. Has anyone ever prepared or does anyone deliver a security dashboard or an IT dashboard report? Yeah.
Not for security.
Oh, you don't do one? Yeah.
We do
Gail?
dashboards, but not for security.
Okay. Well, and what dashboard do you use? Just IT overall?
Yeah, service uptimes, ticket tracking,
Okay.
dashboards, things like that.
And do you have the red light, yellow light, green light stuff? Yeah. Management loves those, don't they? Oh, it's like a cartoon for them. They love that. Good.